The worst case scenario is that you get a building back totally empty that you probably don't want. Best case scenario is that you have a tenant that you know has a good track record with you, and but for this situation will continue to pay you. And once she gets through the situation, we'll begin to pay you again. So the best case scenario, the win-win scenario is let's work out a reduced rent or an abated rent or a compromise in that area.
Hello, Profit First entrepreneurs and thought leaders. I am so excited today because we have a special guest with us. We have Ed Ryland with us today, and Ed is the president of ARVO Realty Advisors. Ed is an award-winning real estate professional with over 30 years experience in brokerage, consulting, tenant, and landlord representation. In addition, he is an author. He is the author of the book, The Secrets of Building a Successful Minority-Owned Business. And today we're going to talk to Ed to find out what should we be doing with our real estate contracts in the midst of COVID-19 2020, and also we're going to get some insights into his book. Ed, welcome to our platform. How are you, Ed?
I'm great, Susanne, and thank you so much. I'm so proud of you and what you've done and what you're doing for the business community, and I'm just happy to be here to share whatever knowledge I have and to support what you're doing.
That is awesome. Thank you. And you have a hot topic right now, right? Because I can't tell you how many of us entrepreneurs right now are locked into leases. I know for us personally, we signed the lease for last year, like, oh yeah, we can just go ahead and do 3 years. And we never suspected we would be going virtual, right? And so
Yep.
Ed, what should we be doing with our real estate right now in 2020?
Man, that is that's a great question. I'll tell you why on a couple of reasons. One is when we started off this year, as many of you guys do, you have a strategic plan. We plan out 2020 and we plan out, okay, what 2021 is going to potentially be back, but mostly 2020. Nowhere in the discussion for 2 days of strategic planning did a pandemic come up or any issues related to that would last as long as it lasts and would have such a devastating impact on many businesses. Some of you guys know this, but a number of small businesses are no longer in business as a direct result of this. But I've been doing some research, particularly around the African-American community, because of all the attention to it. Over 440,000 Black-owned businesses went out of business between February and April of this year. And I would tell you, in my opinion, it's probably because of two reasons. One, this unexpected pandemic, but two, not having enough capital to sustain you during difficult times. And then three, having expenses that you just drain you. The two top expenses that I've witnessed for a small business is their personnel and the cost of their facilities, their office space, their retail space, their warehouse, their wholesale, that kind of stuff. So to the degree that we can control those expenses gives us an opportunity to weather difficult times and grow our business. So what happened during COVID? One, personnel. You can get rid of personnel, you can downsize, and perhaps you're able to, if you're fortunate enough, get some relief from PPP, right? A lot of folks did not, but some folks did. But what do you do with the next biggest expense on your profit and loss statement, which is most of the time the cost of your rent? What do you do with that? And what we found is that many people were locked into leases that did not have the type of language and clauses that allow you to deal with something like this. So the first thing that we tell folks is to let's take a look at your lease agreement and see if you negotiate a termination clause in there. And many people did not. Those that we have counseled and involved in, we always negotiate a termination clause in there. So we were able to kind of reference the termination clause in those lease agreements, right? But for the clients for those folks who did not have that, what we have to do now is try to see how we can get lease relief. And so we develop a program called Lease Relief, where we go in and we help to negotiate and restructure your lease agreements that will give you abated rent, free rent for a period of time, reduced rent, or to restructure some of the other terms and conditions of your lease agreement that would give you that relief that you need to get through this difficult time. So if your audience is listening right now, I would say regardless of what agreement you sign before COVID-19, although that is an agreement, I would say I would still go to your landlord with a strategy based on your business, based on how it's impacted your business. We say, let's talk about developing an impact statement for you. So when we go to your landlord, we would say, this is how my business was before. This is how my business is now. And this is how I project my business to be within a period of time. As a result of this, what I want you to do is to either abate rent for me for 6 months or give me a drastically reduced rental amount for a period of time. And that way, what you end up doing is being able to reduce that overhead, in many cases, save your business. So that's the thing that we're doing with the individuals who have lease agreements. Now, let's say you own your building. And so right now you're in a difficult time, you're trying to pay your mortgage. Well, the CARES Act has a provision in it that will allow you to refinance that. Now, you have to occupy 51% of that. And then I want to talk about this, because this is an opportunity with a very sharp window on it right now. We just hosted a session about this. And the CARES Act has a component in it that will allow you to purchase a building that you will occupy 51% of and not have to pay a mortgage for 6 months. So let's say you want to buy a building today. You occupy 51% of it, you lease out the rest. You won't have a mortgage payment until the 7th month. Not that you have to pay it back at any time. This is free money. You don't have to pay it back. Let's say you're in a mortgage right now and you need some relief. But this is an opportunity to refinance that building and not have a mortgage payment for the next 6 months. The only caveat here is that you must close and fund that transaction by September the 27th. So those are the two things that, and if any of your people are interested, definitely have them contact me. We'll put you in contact with our SBA lender who can help expedite that process for you. But those are the two things that are impacting the business community. Their leases that were structured and the mortgages that they may be under right now.
Wow. So, Ed, it sounds like it might be a good time to buy a building too. You're going to get 7 months paid.
Yep, there's some opportunities out there.
That's amazing. So 6 months of unpaid mortgage.
Right.
And if you refinance 7 months, that's really nice.
Right. If you refinance, you won't have a payment for 6 months. Yeah.
That is really, that's viewers, that is like some juicy gifts that you just got from Ed right there. Does it have to be an SBA loan, or what if you have a traditional lender like Chase Bank or something?
This program has never been done before in the history of this country. And this is only tied to the CARES Act as a direct result of this challenge that we're having. And so that's why it's only for a specific group of people, and that is for owner-occupied SBA lending, right? And it's only for a short period of time. So this is to give relief. So if you look at coupling some payroll relief with some mortgage relief, it can help sustain you for a period of time until hopefully we get through this COVID challenge.
Wow, that is amazing. That is really great. So if anybody's out there, if you're manufacturing, if you had to scale back for your operations, definitely listen to Ed's advice there. I mean, to be able to put off those mortgage payments. I mean, and I believe too, Ed, and you'll probably correct me if I'm wrong. I seen some of those loan agreements. SBA is actually making the mortgage payments on those, right?
SBA?
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to make those payments. Those payments are forgiven for the first 6 months.
That is really, so it's forgiven. So it's like almost like having a price reduction, right? On
That's
your
right.
real estate. That is really, really good. Oh my goodness, guys, take advantage of that. And I'm going to go put Ed's contact information in the show notes too, so you guys can access that later on after today. And Ed, so tell me about, and those are some good ideas too, with like if you're in a lease right now too. You mentioned that there's opportunities potentially to renegotiate that lease with the landlord. Now I know you guys do that professionally, and it's definitely helpful. What is the likelihood of landlords budging on that and really being open to renegotiating some of those lease terms? And what happens if the landlord isn't open to negotiating those terms?
So that's a great question. And just be prepared, because the first thing they're going to say is, no, I'm not going to do it. That's the first reaction. And because their concern is that, okay, I still have a mortgage to pay on this building. I still have expenses to pay on it. Yeah, we understand that, but that's not my issue. You got to talk to your mortgage company. You got to talk with those people. You got to work that out. And I'm willing to kind of share with you any advice I can. So expect them to say no, right? Now, depending on the specific property and the landlord or the owner of their property. So let's take, for instance, the different categories. If you're in an industrial building, the occupancy there is probably about 96%. Default on the occupancy there is very high, 97, 96%. So most people that are occupying industrial warehouse facility, they are not as impacted by COVID as the rest of us, because they are into distribution. And as you know, the internet is going crazy right now. So warehouse, manufacturing, distribution, that industrial property is not impacted as greatly. So if you're in an industrial property, you may have a more difficult challenge getting it released, but not impossible. And you may not even need it if your business have not been, disrupted. If you're in an office building though, you are probably, that owner of that office building is probably suffering pretty big right now, because the vast majority, the office market was already soft to begin with, right? So it was pretty soft. But now most people are working remotely. So a lot of these buildings are vacant. So if you're in an office building, I would say your chances are greater, depending on, again, the ownership and where that building is located. So if that building is 90% occupied, then the landlord may not be willing. But I would say in most office situations, I would approach that landlord, regardless of the terms of your lease agreement, talk about that impact statement, and be ready to ask for what you want. I want to have 6 months of abated rent, or I want to have 3 months of abated rent with 3 months put on the back end. There's all type of strategies we can put together for you based on or you can put together for you, or whoever your real estate professional is, hopefully can help you put it together. But I would say that on retail, again, they do not want to give up free rent or adjusted rent. But just look at what's happening in the retail market. Restaurants are barely being occupied. No one is wanting to go in these retail establishments because of, exposure to COVID. So a lot of these shopping centers have very low occupancy. And so if I'm a landlord in that position, I'm saying I may not want to give you any lease relief, but I want to try to hold you on as long as I can with something, right? So if I gave you 3 months of rent relief, that may keep you in business. So when this thing passes over, you will come back and start paying rent again. So I would just say in every situation, depending on your property type and your ownership, there's an opportunity to have a conversation. But you got to be persistent and consistent, because the first reaction is going to be no.
Right. No.
And then finally, we've had one that we worked on for, I bet you it was 60 days before he finally came around and said, okay, what do you guys want to do? And said, this is what we want to do. This is what we've been telling you from day one, right? So it becomes a win-win. You keep your center and that building occupied, and you help a tenant stay in business. And that tenant is going to be beholden to you, because when times get rough, you probably be one of the first people that he'll pay or come to talk about his situation. So if you help him out now, he'll help you out later, is our thought.
Yeah, definitely. To have to pay for evictions and stuff, and eventually the business will come back, right? It'll come back hopefully by the end of the year once COVID ends, right?
Yep.
So it does behoove the landlord to be a little nice, no rent, or extend the lease and delay the rent, right?
Yep.
I think I'd rather delay the rent personally.
Yeah.
So are there any benefits to make it a win-win situation with the landlord? I don't know if they qualify for those SBA loans or not because I imagine they don't get the 51% occupancy, right? If it's tenant led.
Yeah, but see, the landlord now has to have the conversation with his mortgage holder and his investors on forbearance, right? So there are some provisions that, stop foreclosures for a period of time. So if I'm an owner of a building, I'm talking to my lender and my investors on this situation. I'm saying, listen, my tenants can't pay me, so I need some help from you so I can pass this down to my tenant. Otherwise, you may end up with a building that you don't really want. And so the same conversations that we will have with you as a tenant, if we're representing a seller or owner of a building, if you're an owner of a building, then we'll be having those same conversations with the lender and your investors, saying, okay, here's where we are. The worst case scenario is that you get a building back totally empty that you probably don't want. Best case scenario is that you have a tenant that has a good track record with you, and but for this situation, will continue to pay you. And once she gets through the situation, we'll begin to pay you again. So the best case scenario, the win-win scenario, is let's work out a reduced rent or an abated rent or a compromise in that area.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And here's another question I've been dying to ask you. So, we're a profit first channel and we're a profit first firm, and profit first methodology is a little bit different than the traditional accounting method. Traditional accounting teaches us revenue minus expenses equals profit. And in profit first, we flip it, right? We flip it so it's revenue minus profit expenses. So we pay our profit first, right? And what that means is that our business owners that are listening to our channel, most of them subscribe obviously to the profit first methodology, which is why they love this, right? And so what happens is when you're paying your profit first, you're building your cash, you're building your retained earnings in addition to paying your owner's pay. And literally whatever's left over is what's left over expenses. So a lot of our listeners have a lot of cash, right? Because they're prescribing to the profit first methodology. So what investment opportunities are there right now where they can take advantage of this down market? Because come on now, this is the Rockefeller moment, right? For some of those guys, especially those guys that businesses weren't impacted, right, by COVID and they got PPP money.
Yep.
And they're still soaring, like IT, right? IT businesses kept soaring. What are the investment opportunities right now in COVID-19?
Yeah, and I love this question because I would tell you this is not the first time we've had a very difficult economic climate, right? I can remember in the mid '80s when, particularly in Houston, it was very, very difficult, right? I would tell you people bought a lot of property during that time. I bought more properties during that most challenging time than I've ever bought in my life, right? So when you say where are the opportunities, so depending on what market, I'm assuming you're people all over the country, or if they're local, I don't know if you're.
Oh, no,
But
they're all
depending
over
on
the
what,
country. They
all over the
range from
country.
California to New York to Florida.
Okay,
And of
great,
course, we do have home-based Texas.
great. So depending on what market you are in, will determine where those opportunities are. But I would tell you this, I think there will be more opportunities coming up over the next 30, 60, 90 days, because the longer this thing lasts, the more difficult it's going to be for folks to meet those mortgage payments and more difficult for tenants to hang on. So you will have owners putting properties on the market that they have not considered putting on the market before. And you have owners perhaps taking lower prices now than they did before. So let's look at the categories where there may be some opportunities. Now, the hottest market right now is the industrial market. I mean, that is by far the hottest market, industrial, and then some multifamily. But the reason industrial is hot is because this whole online community buying, distribution centers, just-in-time services, and all of that. So if you can purchase a industrial property that can support the Amazons of the world to get their products to their customers in less than an hour, that may create an opportunity for you. So what do I mean by that? So Amazon has a 1 million square feet facility on the north side of Houston. So, and that's about, maybe an hour away from here. So how do I position myself so that I can get products from Amazon to my warehouse so I can get them to you in the shortest period of time? Well, if I have a smaller warehouse, 10, 15, 20,000 square feet warehouse that's located closer to the consumer base, then now I become attractive perhaps for someone like Amazon or a Walmart or a larger distribution company to want to use my warehouse for distribution and storage of products to get to the customer. So I still think that the industrial product is a pretty good idea if you can find the right property on the right terms and conditions. Office. In Houston right now, there are some opportunities in the office market because the office market was hit during the 2014 oil decline, oil going from $100 a barrel to $50 a barrel, people giving up office space, a lot of vacancies. So office facilities. So if you believe that office is going to come back, now may be an opportunity to look at office space. And here's why I say you have to really think about this office space. Some people say that, well, now people are working remotely. We'll continue to do that forever. I think more and more people will get comfortable working remotely. We'll be productive. But the office environment and collaboration is not going away. And now because of COVID, people may say, now I need more space, not less space. So instead of cramming people into this small collaborative space, I don't know if I want to be 2 inches from you anymore. I really want. So people are now starting to think, well, I need more space. So what does that mean? There may be a bigger demand for office space in certain markets. So I think office products hold some promise if you're looking for to invest. Retail. people are saying retail is dead. Folks are not doing retail. They're buying online. Well, if you look at the statistics, that doesn't hold true. There's still a large amount of people going in the brick and mortar. Now, we're still accessing online shopping a lot more than we ever have, but retail is not dead. It's reinventing itself. People want an experience. So when they go to retail, they don't just want to go and pick up a pair of shoes. They want to go and have a nice dinner or lunch. They want to go and maybe be entertained, and then they want to shop as well. So when you're looking at retail, you may not see the huge retail boxes like you do. They may be smaller to fit the communities more, but retail also creates some opportunities for you as well. So I would say those in multifamily for sure, for particularly around the affordable housing sector, probably the biggest, the largest call we get in our office is for investors looking for affordable housing product, C-class, D-class apartment buildings, so that they can rehab them, fix them up, and rent them out and or sell them. So multifamily, I think, is also an opportunity. But right now is a good time for your audience to be looking around and to be ready, right? Because the opportunities will be here, but they won't last forever. So within the next 30, 60, 90 days, I think that you will start seeing more and more opportunities as the folks who have purchased property can no longer hang on to them. And you'll see them doing some things that perhaps they would not have done pre-COVID.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's amazing. And I never thought about that. You're right. But your first one that you mentioned, like buying locations that benefit businesses that are doing extremely well right now, right? So shifting to the new demand, which is, like you said, the online retail, and they need warehouse space, right? Because everybody's used to getting things tomorrow, right? Once a week, right? For you to be able to ship that. We want it tomorrow, right? We want the same benefit of being able to go to like a grocery store and get it, right? So you're right. Just being able you can get that instantaneous, right, demand filled potentially by shifting towards industries that are already in high demand. And how can we cater to that? And another thing I want to ask you about, and this is something that's really hot right now, right? A lot of my clients are asking me about this because of Profit First and because of their cash position. Qualified opportunity zones. And they're looking at it like, oh my gosh, I can probably defer some capital gain. Right now, the markets are really wonky. Did you see that Amazon stock is going for over like $3,000? Did you see that? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
that's a rent.
wow.
That's a commercial rent right there almost.
I know. It's crazy.
But, and so, obviously with it being so high, it can easily tank too, right? Especially being an election year and anything can happen. And so a lot of our viewers are looking at how can I divest to really smooth out my risk, mitigate my risk, and not be so concentrated in the market. And one of the things is the qualified opportunity zones. And like you said, that's going to probably be in the areas that, right, need to be developed, right?
Right.
What type of investments, because I would qualified opportunity zones, they can either start a business there or they can purchase rental property and fix it up, right? What type of investment should they go into to really maximize their profitability using qualified opportunity zones and tax strategy?
Yeah, so this is an area that really requires a lot longer conversation, but let me just give you two parts of it, in my opinion. There's the opportunity zone fund, and then there's the opportunity zone geographical area. And so in order to invest in the opportunity zone, it comes through the opportunity fund. So you want to invest in you want to invest in a particular area, opportunity zone fund, invest in that area for that particular project. So if I'm looking at Houston, for instance, there are some areas that are identified as opportunity zones, specifically for the purpose of redeveloping those areas. And there are various types of products and businesses that you can invest in. Now, since I'm in real estate, we've just basically been involved in the real estate transactions, but most of those opportunity zone investments have come through opportunity zone funds, and not necessarily let me go buy a property in an opportunity zone and expect to get the tax benefit that you're referencing. It's my understanding that it has to come through that opportunity zone fund.
And do you mind going into what is the Qualified Opportunity Fund? Just for those that might not be familiar with it, what is the fund exactly?
Okay. So I guess to maybe simplify, and that is you and I and a couple more folks on your part of your group, we decide that we want to create a fund for the specific purpose of investing in the opportunity zone. So you and I create the instrument, create the entity, and we put our money into that fund. Then that fund will be able to, based on how we structure and what we want to focus on. If we're going to focus on office, we're going to opportunity fund to focus on office, retail, manufacturing. Based on what we agree this fund will be structured to invest in, that's what the administrator of that fund would do. He would look for opportunities around that investment and invest those funds in those opportunity zone areas specific to that product. So now we've got a group of people who are owners of this fund because we've invested in this fund, but this fund can invest in properties in different geographical areas based on the selection criteria that we agreed upon. That's the simple one. So it's an investment group of people that will invest in specific type of products in specific areas.
Got it. Definitely. So you'll want to definitely do that through a legal entity then to make
Yes.
those investments for yourself, whether it be an LLC or partnership or some of these have publicly traded partnerships, right? That you can actually buy into those funds that invest in the qualified opportunity zones.
There are some private public partnership to your point. And opportunity zones are not always in these low income areas. Downtown Houston, one of the biggest buildings in downtown is being done through an opportunity zone.
Wow. I was looking at the Houston map and I was like, man, it's like half a downtown. Half a downtown is qualified. And right by Rice Village. The president used to live there.
Right. So don't think that you have to be in, low income, areas. The opportunity zone is to generate economic opportunities in areas that may need to be, regenerate.
And every city has them. If you Google qualified opportunity zones in your city, you'll be able to see the map of what that looks like. Is there like any specific areas that you recommend for qualified opportunity zones? Like how do you know it's going to be a good area or an area that's going to go up in value? Because the benefit of the qualified opportunity zone, for those that are not familiar with it, is, you have a part of your capital gain is forgiven. So you get 10% forgiven in your first 5 years, and then an additional 5% is forgiven if you hold it for 7, and then you get step-up basis if you hold the property for 10 years, meaning that if you buy a property for $1 million, at the end of 10 years, if it appreciates to $2 million and you sell it 10 years in one day, it's a tax-free transaction. A $2 million transaction is tax-free if you sell it. And that's the benefit for you guys who are listening of investing in the qualified opportunity zones. So it's a way of preserving wealth, diversifying your risk, and eventually it's also a tax strategy, right? Because you don't have to pay any taxes on this step up in basis that you're going to have. So how do you know what is a good property in the qualified opportunity zone versus not? Like is it Starbucks? What are your thoughts on that?
So, you look at your local market, and then you look at your submarkets, and then you look at the transient submarket, and then I look at the path of growth, right? Where do I see the path of growth? If I'm going to invest in retail, where do I see rooftops? Because rooftop drives retail, right? The two things that drive commercial real estate is population and jobs. So when I look at a market and I see that population is growing, Houston is growing by 10,000 people a month, jobs are growing, then I'm thinking, okay, this is a market where it's going to need retail to support the population growth. It's going to need office and industrial to support the job growth. So you want to look at those numbers so you can get a sense of, are these numbers growing? Are they decreasing? What's happening? And then you want to look at the submarkets and see what's happening locally to drive economic development in those areas and who's in power. So for instance, we know that in Houston, Mayor Turner has an emphasis on certain communities. You have a program out that's called Complete Communities. So he's putting resources and his voice behind redeveloping certain communities. This complete community is about 5 or 6 of them that's been focused on. Third Ward, Acres Home, the east side of Houston. So if there's that type of focus on it, there's going to be some economic development occurring in those areas, and people will need the type of real estate to support that growth. People would need retail, people would need office, people would need some industrial space. So I like to follow the path of growth and in terms of, and try to get ahead of that. And to determine where I want to invest in.
Wow. So you guys, you're gonna have to predict where the growth is going to be happening. You heard the genius himself. Predict where the growth is happening. Get it. Look at the trends. Read the newspaper and watch the politicians and what their priorities are. Ed, I am dying to hear about your book. I am dying to hear about it. The Secrets of Building a Successful Minority-Owned Company. Tell me about this. What made you do this? Tell me about some juicy morsels of this book. I'm like dying to hear about this book.
So let me just say this before I get started, man. Thank you so much. And for those who are not minorities, and I have to say this because non-minorities have said this to me. They said, Ed, the secrets that you put in this book, I know you're addressing the minority community, but these secrets are good for me too. So if you're not a minority, get this book because these tips will be good for you. And let me tell you what drove me to write the book. So folks have been asking me for years, Ed, I mean, what have you done and how do you stay successful in an industry that is tremendously underrepresented by people of color in a very, very competitive industry? And so I'm laying in the bed one day and just kind of thinking about secrets for some reason. And I said, okay, secrets. I mean, what's the secret to being successful? And I thought about a couple of things. One is most of the time, minority-owned companies are first-generation business owners. And we have not had the secrets of building a successful company handed down to us. A large number of non-minorities have had their second and third generation companies. And so when I started doing some research, I found out that there were 8 million minority-owned businesses in this country. About 3.4 Hispanic, about 2.6 African Americans, and the rest are Asians and others. And then when I started digging deeper to look at the revenue generated by these different categories, this is what was shocking to me. The average annual revenue of an African American entrepreneur is $58,000 a year. The average annual revenue of a Hispanic entrepreneur is $167,000 a year. The average annual revenue of an Asian entrepreneur is $324,000 a year. But don't miss this point. The average annual revenue of a non-minority is $558,000 a year, 10 times as much as an African-American entrepreneur. So I asked the question, why is that? And I kept coming back to these secrets. We have not had the secrets of building a successful minority-owned company passed down to us. And so we start off trial and error. We start off undercapitalized. We start off not having a mentor or anyone to kind of navigate us through the process of being an entrepreneur. And so when I look at the failure rate and the fact that 41% of African-American owned businesses are out of business now between February and April of this year, it ties back to this. So I spent a year traveling across the country, interviewing CEOs of successful companies, minority-owned companies and people in corporate America and others. And I asked them one single question. I said, what do you think it takes to build a successful minority-owned company? And I got a fountain of wisdom, a fountain of advice, strategies, and tactics. And I took all of that information and combined it with my thoughts, and I created the book, The Secrets of Building a Successful Minority-Owned Company. We've been on a book tour since last July, and the feedback has been, I mean, more than I would have imagined. It's just been outstanding.
That is amazing, and a very, very needed book too. And this is speaking for minorities as well as non-minorities, as an accountant, and I've seen the statistics, for $1 million company, the average profit for $1 million company is $50,000. $50,000. And, and it's like you said, it's a whole lot of things that go involved with it, pricing, margins, doing favors for it. But you're right. It's a much needed book, especially for people that are first generation, right, to become entrepreneurs. It's definitely a needed book. So thank you for bringing that to market, Ed. And for you guys that are looking, the book is called The Secrets of Building a Successful Minority-Owned Company, and it's by Ed Ryland. I was wondering to really be able to just kind of bring it home. And you've got a wealth of experience. I mean, real estate business. I mean, like literally you are a Houston icon, Ed Ryland, a Houston
man,
icon.
thank you.
And I don't think I know anyone that's done it like Ed Ryland has done it. A serious real estate mogul and commercial real estate. What gift, what juicy piece of morsel can you leave our entrepreneurs with today to really be able to propel their business to the next level in this 2020 decade that we are now living in. And it can be related to real estate. It can be personal. It can be anything. What juicy piece of morsel can you leave our viewers and listeners with today?
Yeah, great question. I would say flexibility, particularly in this environment. I know you have your plans, but I would say those plans used to be a year plan. They used to be a 6 months plan. They used to be 90, 30, 60, 90-day plan, bi-weekly. Be very flexible. Be prepared to take advantage of opportunities. Don't be afraid of challenges. Run to the challenges. I think entrepreneurs, people who want to invest, challenges create opportunities. So be flexible. Keep your eyes open for problems, pain points that people may be having, and be prepared to think creatively outside of the box. Think the opposite of what you may have thought of before. So if I thought, man, I would never partner with, someone that digs holes for the city and pour concrete, I'm thinking now maybe I should think about partnering with them because there may be an opportunity. And I say that as a crazy way of thinking. We moved into new office space at the beginning of this year, right before this freaking pandemic occurred. And one of the way we design our office, we designed a room that's called the crazy ass idea room. And I did that because I wanted people to be able to go in that room and not think the way we've thought all the time. I want to be able to think creative, innovative, wild. There's no crazy idea. I think in this environment, you have got to be able to demonstrate how you can add value by thinking creatively. And I think right now you got to be flexible. You got to be able to be very responsive. You got to be able to change your direction. You have to have some foundational things that keep you going. That's for sure. But be creative. And also social media. If you are not just social media to say, here's who I am and what I do and what I've ate today and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you have to really leverage and spend time and resources around how you will use social media to brand yourself. We posted, my daughter runs my social media, and we hired a team to do this as well. She posted something a couple of weeks ago, over 400,000 views. The video that you're referencing, in less than 24 hours, 1,500 views. I can't call 1,500 people in a year, 2 years. So my point is, and I was one who was like, man, the social media, I don't know. I don't want to talk to folks about what I ate. I've changed my mind. Because we cannot meet face-to-face like we've had in the past, we've got to think of more creative ways to use this online presence. So flexibility, online presence, thinking more creatively and different from what you thought before. It's the three things that I would leave your audience with.
I love it. That is great advice. That is great advice, Ed. So guys, seize your Rockefeller moment. Think differently, think creatively, and do things differently and be flexible. Thank you, Ed, so much. Now, Ed, how do we reach you? How do we reach you when the podcast ends? What's the best way to reach you, contact you, help us with our real estate, get out of our leases, get our payments deferred? How do we reach you?
So feel free to share my information to whoever you want, but I would tell you, you can find me on LinkedIn, Ed Ryland. You can find me on Facebook, Ed Ryland. You can find me on Instagram. And then you can find me by my website. I have an on-site website, edryland.com. Or you can email me, Ed Ryland, at my company. I won't do that, but you can, Ed Ryland at ARVO Realty Advisors. You can send them that information. But quickly, you can find me at edryland.com. That's my website, personal website, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on Instagram.
Got it. So guys, it's Ed Ryland, ED, and Ryland's RYLAND. So you can go edryland.com. You can also find Ed on LinkedIn as well as Instagram and his website. So thank you, Ed, so much for the juicy morsels that you shared with us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. And you guys be careful, be safe, and best of luck. We're here to help whenever we can.
Thank you, Ed.
All right. Thank you.